Topic 1. Strongly worded U.S. threats against Iran and a looming war deadline rattled investors, pushed oil higher, and left European and Asia Pacific markets mixed, while analysts monitored risks around the Strait of Hormuz. President Trump set a deadline, demanding the Strait of Hormuz be opened by 8 a.m. ET and warning he'd strike civilian infrastructure such as bridges and power plants if it was not, even saying a civilization will disappear tonight, signaling possible military action. Markets turned volatile ahead of the deadline. Pan-European stock 600 fell about 1%, the S&P 500 dropped roughly 0.8%, Asia-Pacific closed mixed, Australia up, Nikkei and Kospi little changed, and investors traded a headline-driven market. Oil prices jumped on choke point concerns with Brent near $100 a barrel and WTI around 115.16. Spot premiums and long-dated demand rising, while producers like Aramco raised Asian selling prices. Shipping reports showed the strait was not fully sealed. Some firms saw about 15 transits per day and signs of selective passage. But many vessels switched off AIS, and Iran appeared to require permits for passage. Banks and CEOs warned potential energy supply shocks could reignite inflation and prolong high rates. Topic 2. Pershing Square has proposed a $64 billion Universal Music merger. Bill Ackman's Pershing Square, via Spark Holdings, offered about $558 to $560 billion, reported roughly $640 to $650 billion as in headline value, at $30.40 per share, a roughly 78% premium to the prior close. The offer would pay 94 billion euros, about 105 billion in cash, approximately 5.5 per share, and 0.77 new Spark shares for each UMG share, merging Spark and UMG into a Nevada entity and seeking a New York listing to boost liquidity. Ackman proposes board changes, including nominating Michael Ovitz as chair, would renegotiate CEO Grange's employment and pay as needed, and argues UMG is undervalued due to shareholder structure uncertainty, U.S. listing delays, and capital allocation issues. Pershing plans to finance the cash portion with Spark rights proceeds, debt, and sales of Pershing's Spotify stake, aims to close within the year, holds about 4.7% of UMG, and the announcement sent UMG and major shareholder stock prices higher. Topic 3. Broadcom signing a long-term deal to build Google's custom AI chips. Broadcom agreed to a long-term contract through 2031 to develop and supply Google's next-generation custom AI rack chips and related components, continuing involvement in Google's TPU and custom silicon efforts. Financial terms were not disclosed. Separately, Broadcom struck a deal with Anthropic to provide about 3.5 gigawatts of computing capacity from 2027 using Google's AI processors. The partnership is strategically important as demand grows for alternatives to NVIDIA GPUs and supports Google's cloud and AI infrastructure expansion via TPUs. Broadcom stock rose about 3% on the news. Analysts cited improved revenue visibility, and company leadership has suggested AI chip revenues by 2027 could exceed $100 billion. Topic 4. ASML selling off amid proposed U.S. chip export curbs to China. U.S. lawmakers introduced the Match Bill to align U.S. and allied semiconductor export controls, possibly extending curbs to deep ultraviolet DUV lithography equipment that China has purchased. EUV is not newly targeted in this bill. ASML shares fell roughly 2.6% after the news. Analysts estimate DUV accounts for about 10 to 15% of ASML revenue, and China roughly half of that, implying a potential hit on the order of 5% of total sales if fully curtailed. The bill could trigger a short-term surge in orders before enforcement, but would hurt medium-term Chinese revenue and add geopolitical overhang until legislative outcomes are clear. Chinese foundries that rely on DUV, such as SMIC and Huahong, would be impacted, and U.S. controls may accelerate China's push for domestic alternatives already emerging in some areas. Topic 5. NASA's Artemis II achieved a high-profile win, capturing a solar eclipse and SERPA.